if the DOL's offline, does that basically mean the entire H-1B process is dead in the water until further notice? What happens to everyone stuck mid LCA right now?
So there's some debate in terms of thought on what to do. Some attorneys are saying if we have an in process LCA, maybe we try filing with that. And then when we get the RFE, when the government reopens, we get the certified LCA and submit it to the RFE response that way. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not pushing anything to file right now. My understanding in looking at the regulations is that you need a certified LCA at the time of filing. If I want to use that as a weapon and I'm USCIS, what I say is when your case comes in and it's not supported by a certified LCA, I'm going to deny your case. And then I'm going to make the argument on top of that. We created a makeshift solution here in basically saying you can file late, and as long as you justify that it was because of the shutdown, we're going to accept your case. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much put a pause on the system that is creeping into a 1 month pause. And it's not great because not only is it a difficult situation for the employees, but the employers themselves are being put in a difficult circumstance because if they can't file someone's extension, are they putting them on unpaid leave? Is having them on unpaid leave an issue for them? Something I haven't seen happen yet, but I'm beginning to wonder about is if your case, let's say your change of status or extension, was in a circumstance where it was being filed and your LCA wasn't certified and it got, hung up. Once you go over that threshold and your status expires, your I-94 expires, what's to stop you from getting an NTA? Is the government, have they put a kibosh on that? Have they said we're going to not issue NTAs right now for H-1Bs because we understand that people can't file? Or knowing this administration, are they more likely to issue NTAs with an understanding that there's a possibility that these people won't have approvals by the time they appear before the court? I don't know. It's unlikely to me that an NTA would result in, something bad happening to these people because they have a very valid argument. The thing about the government shutdown is it's also impacting immigration courts. So unless you're detained, my understanding is your hearings are being moved if you're in any level of removal proceedings. So I couldn't really see that long-term happening, but it does create fear. And then there's also the underlying frustration of, even if you're not someone who's in a circumstance where you're not going out of status anytime soon, if you got moved to a new project and your company can't file the amendment for you, you're just sitting around, or they're assigning you different duties. Are they letting you work remotely from the previous location? How does that even work? And then the people who, and I still continue to say this, are the most kind of screwed by this are your transfers, your people who may have given notice to the previous employer, not knowing the government was going to shut down, and then their LCA is stuck in limbo. What do we do for them? And so all of this is a difficult situation for people. And it's, in my opinion, it's made worse by the fact that I'm not pretending I'm dialed into Washington, neither Hollywood nor Washington, but I'm not dialed into Washington. I have the same access to anybody else. I read, Washington Post, the Times, NPR, same stuff you all have access to. What I'm looking at tells me that we're not I can't see the shutdown ending anytime soon. There doesn't seem to be any actual negotiations that are taking place unless they're being taken place in secret and we don't know about them. But with politics, you usually have an inkling as to what's going on because all these people like to talk. And no one's talking about it getting closer. There seems to be the Democrats aren't saying they're willing to come to the table for a clean bill, and the Republicans don't seem like they're willing to meet either of the requests from the Democratic Party. So we're now kind of moving into a circumstance where neither party is willing to relent, and they're both going to begin highlighting the pain that's being suffered as a result. And my original prediction the last time I got on here and talked to you guys about the shutdown was that the shutdown would end before Thanksgiving, because my guess is that they don't want federal workers going unpaid into the holiday season. I still think that that's the case, but I am a little more worried than I was during our last call because there's just not been a lot of movement in terms of getting anything done. Everyone seems fairly entrenched and willing to let issues happen. I mean, they carved out an exception for the military to continue getting paid, which was what I think each party was very willing to tout against the other as an issue. So once that becomes fixed, it becomes, okay, what about federal employees? What about this? What about that? I promise you guys, unfortunately, you're very low on the totem pole in terms of, what about H-1B holders and their LCAs? I don't think that it's a big deal for the government right now presently. So what we have to kind of hope is that the parties will meet relatively soon to come up with some sort of a stopgap bill so that we can at least open back up this process and let people actually file LCAs.